was accused 6 years ago of a murder that he didn't commit. We were naive and trusting in the system back then. We were sure the charges would be dropped. They weren't. The case, we were sure, would not go to trial. It did. We were sure he wouldn't be convicted, but he was. So a half dozen years later, we continue to navigate this bizarre terrain that's become too familiar to many others in our nation, a nation that, as Jim says, incarcerates more than anyone else. The story of my son's case, though, is really for another time, and I'll avoid the self-serving temptation to tell it here. And I'll leave the topic for wrongful conviction who's worked in it for so long. However, our family's experience with the criminal justice system opened our eyes to a level of public policy dysfunction that every day astonishes us and puzzles us more and more. I was asked to talk about some sex offense issues, and I'll do that tonight in hopes that you'll find what I say supportive of our state chapter's mission to protect, defend, and extend the civil rights and civil liberties of all people in Colorado through litigation, education, and advocacy. Let me begin this way. Some of you older people like me will catch this illusion.
You need to speak louder, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Please don't. Okay, do you remember this? There is a fifth dimension. A dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. It is an area some call Colorado's Lifetime Supervision Act and Sex Offender Treatment and Monitoring Program. Others call it the Twilight Zone. Now, the legislation that established the Lifetime Supervision Act was in 1998, and its full effects are still being realized today. Let me define some terms here. Sex offender, a person who's been convicted of committing a sex offense. Now, when I hear that word, sex offense, that term, you know, I get this image of Jeffrey Dahmer and others like him, people that seem to me to be just beyond redemption, right? But more commonly, a person committing a sex crime might be a 20-year-old male instant messaging the persona of a 15-year-old girl who turns out to be a detective. Or maybe the sex offense is the consummation of adolescent passion between a high school senior and a freshman or sophomore. Some have suggested that a congressman sending electronic images of his bulging white tighties might be committing a sex crime. Well, I don't think Anthony Weiner is going to go to prison, or even be charged with a sex offense. But you know that 20-year-old kid hoping to get lucky online? 2 years to life. And Jim talked a little bit about indeterminate sex. I'll get this right. Indeterminate sentencing and sex offenses. Now, the motivation of our state legislature really was admirable. In the declaration, the legislative declaration for that act, they wrote, "The General Assembly hereby finds that the majority of persons who commit sex offenses, if incarcerated or supervised without treatment, will continue to present a danger. The General Assembly also finds that keeping all sex offenders in lifetime incarceration imposes an unacceptably high cost. The General Assembly further finds that some sex offenders respond well to treatment and can function as safe, responsible, and contributing members of society." That's the motivation behind this act. But that's not what has happened. Through June 30th of 2009, 1,496 people in Colorado were sentenced to prison under that act. How many have been paroled? As of that date, 31. Why so few? Well, I'm going to give you just a couple of stories from the Twilight Zone, and I'm going to give them to you in the words of some people who have been convicted under this act and what they have faced. And let you be the judge of where we have fallen short in realizing the good motivations of the legislature. The first story is from a guy named Jeremy Lloyd, and I use his name with permission. I am in DOC under an indeterminate sentence. As I look out the cell house window, I see the colors of autumn. Normally, this would be a happy time for any other inmate, as it would signify another year down on their sentence. However, for me, it is a very sad time, as it is an indicator of another year I sit in prison waiting for some treatment program I am not being offered. I am waiting endlessly for treatment because there is no end to the treatment program, and therefore there is no bed space for me and the vast majority of others like me with an indeterminate sentence. Although I have seen the parole board 9 times on a 2 years to life sentence, when I see them, I am still told that I have to stay in prison another year because I need treatment I cannot get. In addition to this, I cannot go to a minimum security facility because I have an indeterminate sentence. I have 2 points, which qualify me for minimum security custody level, but I am singled out because of my sentence. Although I have not had any write-ups or trouble since 2004, I really do not get to enjoy good time or earned time because for my Class 4 felony, I have an MRD, that's mandatory release date, the date that we've got to open the doors for this fella, of 28/99.